It's been a year since Tekken 8 launched, so how's the meta developed? Who stands at the top? Not named Dragunov. Which characters dominate the competitive scene? Not named Dragunov. And how the meta and top tiers have evolved after a year of high-level play? Not named Dragunov. Similar to the Street Fighter 6 video, we will utilize Wikipedia's tournament tiers to determine what results we use for these events, with Tier 1 tournaments being divided at 1,000 attendees. A player must win a single game with a character for the result to count, and if a player pulls out a character in a set but does not win with a single character with that game, then the character is not counted. Also, consider that some character data is dependent on data recording or match recordings from tournaments and event runners, and that unfortunately means some brackets were incomplete. Before we begin, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. I put a lot of research and effort into these videos, and your support means a hell of a lot to me. Okay, let's kick things off by looking at the first month of the game, and what characters were initially seen as the best.
Get ready for the next battle.
The first month of competition is always the most interesting to look back to. Well, in this case, the first 2 months, as there really wasn't enough data in just month 1, and the amount of data explodes once April happens. But here we get to look at what characters were initially perceived as strong, and if those characters actually stayed relevant. Dragunov was immediately pinned as the best character in the game. The Ice Cold Killer claimed control as he held a dominant 12% his first month. So what made many say that he was the best character in the game at launch? Well, his strengths from Tekken 7 were still there and carried over to Tekken 8. He has great mobility, great pokes, and moves with great plus frames. Also a pretty strong throw game, the ability to whiff punish easily with his movement, and good wall carry combos. But with the transition to Tekken 8 came so many new buffs, whether directly or indirectly. Originally he only had one low to rely on for openers, but got 2 new ones that added his versatility neutral. He went from having relatively weak tracking to gaining tracking on some moves to help better deal with sidestepping. Add on much better damage on wall combos, arguably one of the best, and of course the big god move, Quarter Circle 4, also known as Ignition Switch. Excellent range, strong pressure, relatively safe on block, essentially was I hit you blocking but now I get a free mix-up. But Dragunov wasn't of course the only one sneaking into the top. Sitting behind him by a good 4% was Jack 8. The BattleBot found early success with his long normals, insane throw game, and of course big damage. Underneath is 2 of Tekken's newest additions. First is the Peruvian caffeine addict Azucena, with her offensive mix-ups and unique stance. The other is the French agent Victor, with his long weapon attacks and mix-up with different stances. Rounding out the top 10 for the early days are Fang, Devil Jin, King, Law, Reina, and lastly, Jin. So once the early meta passed and the preconceived notions of characters were challenged, who actually stuck around once events and the Tekken World Tour ramped up? Who actually won tournaments? Let's get into it.
Get ready for the next battle.
Let me explain the percentages that I was showcasing for the top 10 of the early meta. I call these placement percentages. A placement percentage signifies a percentage out of all counted tournament results for the tournaments listed on Wikipedia during Tekken's first year of competition based on the rules laid down earlier. Of the 32 launch characters plus the 2 additional DLC characters that were released during 2023, almost every single character managed to pull over 1% of results tallied. That is incredibly impressive and showcases that most characters can compete in the meta. There are 2 DLC characters that launched during this time frame, and with Tekken's infamous mishandling of Leroy, I thought it'd be interesting to see how these characters played out in the balance with the rest of the cast. The first DLC character that was released was Eddie, who made a solid presence in the meta, but nothing too crazy in terms of his results, sitting at the lower end of the pack. And the other at the bottom of the board was Lydia, but like, she was only out for a week or 2, so she doesn't really count. But down there are 2 characters far below the rest. Asuka and Panda. With Tekken 8 gearing towards a more offensive-oriented game over Tekken 7, a defensive-built character such as Asuka struggled to make her mark. And Panda, well, Panda's just not a popular character to begin with. It has very similar moves to Kuma, yet is completely outclassed by her other bear counterpart, who has a much better heat smash and better heat mechanics, meaning there's not much reason to play her at high level. This doesn't in any way mean these characters are bad. They were just outclassed by characters with some similar tools, or just were not worth playing in comparison to the best in the game. Speaking of the best, let's dive into the top 10. Of course, Dragunov still reigns supreme, though the lead between him and number 2 has shrunk quite a bit. But Jack 8 no longer sits behind him at number 2, falling out of the top 5 once the rest of the 6 months played out. The character to truly rise up to the role of the second best was Fang. Fang is evasive, speedy, and cunning, specking and being one of the best at whiff punishing with his various stances. One is literally called Deceptive Step. His incredible pokes and jabs help enable that, and can even be utilized to interrupt opponents' strings, and stands as the best up-close brawler in the game. Following up to round out the top 3 is the main Devilman Crybaby himself, Jin. He is essentially a jack of all trades, and a master of, well, most. Great mids lows, excellent heat state, good damage on combos, a complete throw game, and the list goes on and on. Jin had great tournament placements too, but did he actually ever win? Well, we'll get into that a bit later. Early meta threats such as Jack 8, Victor, Azucena, King, and Reina are all still here in the top 10, with new additions at the bottom with Huareng kicking his way in and Lily laughing at the rest. Now, in terms of who was actually winning tournaments, it should be no surprise that Dragunov has won the most events, with Fang just behind him. But number 3 isn't Jin. In fact, Jin is all the way down at only having 3 event wins. Number 3 is a tie with Shaheen and Alyssa, characters outside the top 10 of results. Even characters at the bottom of the list, such as Asuka and Panda, have tournament wins. But what if we just looked at the majors? The characters truly succeeding at the very top. The character with the lowest results to win a major was Shaheen, winning Combo Breaker under AK. Law won a major known as the Mix-Up under Double. Alyssa took the gold home at Battle Arena Melbourne under Chanel. Claudio found a major win at Super Tournament under Molgald. Lily took home Evo Japan with Chikarin. And Fang won the Baz Gauntlet under Joka. But there were 2 characters who actually won 2 majors. Of course, number 1 is Dragunov, taking DreamHack Sunder under Ulsan and CEO under Atif, and the other being Nina, who just missed out of the top 10 of results. She won Paradise Game Battle under Jod, and took home the Evil title under Tekken legend Arslan Ash. As time moves forward, patches happen, and the metagame shifts. So let's get into the second half of Tekken's first year and see which characters stayed at the top, which popped off, and which got dropped off of a cliff.
Get ready for the next battle.
The second half of Tekken 8's first year saw some shakeups to the meta. The biggest winner was technically Lydia, because she actually had time to gain results, cracking into the top 20 as a solid pick, but that wouldn't be the most fair pick. The true winners in the second half, who rose up the most in results, were Jun, Shaheen, and surprisingly Asuka, who went from the very bottom to, well, pretty solid, but nothing crazy, utilizing some buffs to start competing with the meta. Other characters who saw improvement were Claudio, Yoshimitsu, and Eddie. But the biggest fall-offs are surprising in comparison. Falling out the top 10 was Reina, another Tekken 8 newcomer who made waves in the initial meta. She found some thunderous nerfs, toning down her evasion, but also dropping her 19 spots to outside the top 20 of the cast. Tied with her for the biggest fall-off was the other tormenting newcomer, Azucena. The coffee-kicking Peruvian got hit with some hard nerfs. Her best neutral pokes got nerfed, her mix-up game got nerfed. Unless you were consistently outplaying the opponent, her ability to dance with the top tiers nowadays is offbeat. Out of characters who saw big downswings this half are Lily, Xiaoyu, Jack 8, and Devil Jin, who has fallen from the top 10 in the first 2 months to one of the least represented characters in the game. And the top 10 had a few shakeups as well, except Dragunov. Yeah, he's still number 1, and even after receiving some nerfs, this shouldn't be a surprise. And Fang and Jin still hold on to the top 3. We have 5 new faces all in the top 10. First up at 4th is Claudio. Sitting just outside the top 10 in the first half, Claudio received some buffs, plus gained new combo strings, and exploded in results, with players such as Tetsu, Molgald, and Tibetano pushing the character forward. At 5th was Shaheen, as mentioned earlier as one of the biggest increases of tournament results, and rounding out the top 10 are Yoshimitsu, Victor, Jun, King, and of course, Nina. I haven't talked about Nina yet, despite her winning 2 majors in the first 6 months. But what you need to know is she's an incredible rushdown character that can overwhelm opponents with great chip damage and really capitalize on the new heat tips introduced to this game. Another 2 DLC characters were released during this time, first being Heihachi, who did at least manage to gain over 1% of results in the time they were released. And Clive was only out for around 2 weeks for the time period of this data, but still managed to gain more results than Panda. Holy shit. 27 characters managed to find tournament wins this season, with Dragunov still leading the pack, followed by Fang and Claudio. And in terms of major winners, well, it is not too different at the top. Olsen brought home 3 major titles for Dragunov, winning the Esports World Cup, Red Bull Golden Letters, and Soup Tekken League? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Fang brought home 2 this time, one under Molgald and another under Kokuma. King won his first major, Tiger Uppercut, under the player The John. Later becomes the first DLC character to win a major, taking home Punishment 3 through Lee Mishima. And lastly, taking home the title at the Tekken World Tour Finals was Rangchu, giving Kuma his first major win as well.
Get ready for the next battle.
It's always interesting to see how each region's meta differs from one another. We're going to look at how the top 10 differs in each global region, North America, Europe, and Asia. So of course, let's just get Dragunov out of the way, not even needing to sneak to get to the top. Joining him in the top 10 in every region is Fang, Claudio, and King. Surprisingly, for being top 3 in both halves, Jin is only in the top 10 in North America and Europe, just missing out the top 10 for Asia at number 12. North America and Europe also share Nina in the top 10, while North America and Asia share Victor, who's top 3 in Asia. North North America has a few unique characters at the top, with Reina at 8, Hwoarang at 5, and surprisingly the number 2 being Jack 8. Europe has Law at 8, Lars at 7, Kuma at 6, and Yoshimitsu at 4. And lastly, Asia with the most unique top 10, with Jun at 10, Azucena at 9, Shaheen at 7, Lily at 6, and lastly Alyssa at 4. When we put the full year together, well, the top 3 is exactly what you expect. But out of the 36 characters in the game, 33 got over 1%, with Heihachi and Clive not really having as much time to develop as characters. So really, outside of Panda, every character is meta-relevant in some sort of way, as 1% is what we've deemed as meta-relevant in these past case studies for other games. So Tekken 8, despite having some really good top tiers, is actually pretty damn balanced. The fact that only 4 characters haven't managed to win a Wikipedia tiered event in this time frame, and 2 of those only really just coming out, is insanely impressive. Here's looking forward to how Tekken 8's meta continues to develop, and if Dragunov will ever be dethroned. Probably wouldn't without nerfs, let's be honest.